Hello and welcome to this poster presentation titled Activating Creative CLILing, Empowering Teachers to Innovate in Lesson Planning. What does creativity mean and where does it reside? How can CLIL empower teachers to design more innovative lessons? Creativity is a phenomenon arising from interactions with processes and products mediated through languages within specific social, cultural, and physical environments. Creativity emerges through relational, situated action and is characterized by novelty or adaptivity. Teachers foster it through lesson planning that intentionally integrates content and language to invite exploration of conceptual tensions, roles, and purposes within the disciplinary context. Creativity in CLIL resides in how teaching and learning are designed and enacted. Rather than asking whether a lesson is creative, first consider whether the conditions are in place for creativity to emerge. Conditions include physical spaces that support collaboration, material exploration, and flexible use of resources. Social realities in which teachers feel able to experiment, take pedagogical risks, and share ideas with colleagues. And cultural contexts that value professional judgment, reflection, and innovation. If lesson planning is supported by these physical, social, and cultural affordances, teachers are better positioned to design innovative lessons. Once these social, cultural, and physical contextual affordances are met, the focus now shifts to a potential process teachers can use during lesson planning to activate creativity. Within any disciplinary domain, knowledge is constructed through different ways of knowing. The Ways of Knowing framework makes these visible by identifying 5 interconnected domains: empirical, symbolic, ethical, aesthetic, and personal. CLIL necessarily engages symbolic knowing, i.e. language learning. However, because CLIL also involves disciplinary content, opportunities arguably expand to activate knowing embedded within the subject matter. Teachers can begin planning by examining disciplinary content for conceptual tensions, roles, and purposes. Ask what makes a topic within the discipline innovative, consequential, debatable, or open to judgment. Consider integrating multiple ways of knowing. Additionally, teachers can consider roles learners might embody, i.e., learners as historians weighing evidence, ecologists balancing trade-offs, designers responding to constraints, or entrepreneurs developing solutions for social causes. Lessons can become spaces for disciplinary action rather than content reproduction. Next, I briefly introduce the Ways of Knowing framework and explain how it supports creative CLILing in lesson planning. In this framework, understanding is constructed through multiple ways of knowing: empirical, symbolic, ethical, aesthetic, and personal. Each way of knowing is associated with a guiding question that helps teachers and learners engage with content in different ways. The empirical way of knowing asks, "What is this, and how does it work?" The symbolic way of knowing asks, "How is meaning represented?" This includes language, math, programming, or other system learning. The ethical way of knowing asks, "What should be done? What is right or responsible?" The aesthetic way of knowing asks, "How can meaning be felt, conveyed, or perceived?" And the personal way of knowing asks, "Who am I in relation to this and to others?" For example, ethical knowing develops through examining values, clarifying principles, taking different perspectives, and justifying decisions related to norms or codes of conduct. Through this process, learners begin to develop a moral compass within the discipline. Similarly, aesthetic knowing involves developing discernment through appreciation, interpretation, imagination, and expression. Personal knowing develops through reflection on experience, self-positioning, and awareness of one's perspectives and responsibilities in relation to others within the disciplinary context. This lesson illustrates how the Ways of Knowing framework can be integrated into creative CLIL lesson design. The lesson begins with a short video clip from Assassin's Creed, which digitally recreates ancient Athens. Students describe what they see while their partners take notes, activating aesthetic knowing by inviting learners to imagine how ancient Athens might have looked and felt as a lived environment, rather than a static historical site. The lesson then moves into personal knowing, as students compare the images of ancient Athens with places in and around Tokyo. This comparison encourages learners to position themselves in relation to the content, drawing on their own experiences and perspectives to interpret historical space. In Activity 3, learners engage with key vocabulary related to power, defense, and expansion. This activates symbolic knowing, as language functions as a system for representing historical relationships and abstract concepts that will later support discussion and reasoning. These activities set the foundation for ethical knowing, which is foregrounded through a disciplinary dilemma: whether Pericles was justified in using the Delian League's funds for the beautification and expansion of Athens rather than for collective defense. By examining competing perspectives, learners engage in value-based reasoning, perspective-taking, and justification. CLIL empowers teachers to design more innovative lessons by enabling them to intentionally integrate content and language in ways that activate multiple ways of knowing. Across the lesson, learners move through these ways of knowing, using language as a mediational tool to interpret content, negotiate meaning, and evaluate disciplinary tensions. In this way, teachers design conditions in which creativity can emerge through integrated engagement with content and language, rather than through isolated activities or predetermined outcomes. Finally, I will outline a set of practical steps teachers can use to design CLIL lesson plans. First, begin with the content. Identify a topic, concept, or issue within the CLIL subject that is conceptually rich, contested, or consequential. This might include a historical decision, an ecological trade-off, or a scientific model that invites interpretation and judgment. Second, identify relevant ways of knowing. Consider which ways of knowing could be activated in relation to the content, such as empirical, ethical, personal, symbolic, or aesthetic. Not all ways of knowing need to be included, but purposeful selection helps create opportunities for deeper engagement. Third, design integrative tasks. Create tasks that require learners to move across selected ways of knowing, using language as a tool for thinking, interaction, collaboration, and problem-solving rather than simple content reproduction. Fourth, anticipate variation. Plan for tasks that allow multiple perspectives, pathways, and outcomes. This flexibility creates the conditions for creative processes to emerge as learners engage with disciplinary content and language in different ways. Finally, reflect and refine the lesson plan. Use learner interaction and output as evidence to inform and improve future lesson design. This concludes the poster presentation. You are invited to explore the sample lesson plan, take a short interactive quiz, or review the recommended readings. Thank you very much for listening.